Welcome to Stephen Green. Well, it's happened, Stephen, and I think we anticipated, didn't we, Makerfield, the result?
Yeah, I was fairly even-minded about it, about which I wanted, because I don't know what the Lord on High has in mind out of this, and so I came down, turned on the television this morning and saw that the Burnham had won, and actually had more votes than everybody else combined, because he had 55% of the votes. So you don't have any mathematician to work out. You've got more votes than everybody else. So yeah, it's very interesting stuff. This, why have they voted for Burnham, the good denizens of Makerfield? Probably because he stood as a sort of, in a weird way, he was a Labour Party candidate, but he's the anti-Keir Starmer candidate. So, get your mind around that one. I think what Richard Tyson's reform is saying is that the people voting for him were voting for him as the get Starmer out candidate, and they've all taken against Keir Starmer, and they want to get him out. Now, but I don't really know whether it's sensible, because Harriet Harman, Labour Party grandee, was writing in the Telegraph. I saw her article only a few minutes ago. She says, actually, if you put down the views of, or the policies, the views of Keir Starmer, Andy Burnham, Wes Streeting, all together on separate pieces of paper without putting the names at the top, you would struggle to know whose was which. In other words, she says they're pretty well indistinguishable. And this is a Labour grandee saying this. They're all much of a muchness, much the same. So what is the Lord playing at? I don't know. Is he giving Reform a chance to catch up a little bit on some of the you know anti-Islam rhetoric with a Restore, or is he thinking that the Burnham is going to completely destroy the establishment? I really don't know. I mean, I repeat what I said when I analysed Restore against Reform UK and the Tories for that matter, and they all say ISIS is a Christian country, blah blah. There's not a lot to choose between them, and I think uh, what we're waiting for, what the good people of this land are waiting for, the people who are displaying the cross of St George at the moment, or or the Saltire in Scotland, or even the cross of St David here in Wales. What we're looking for is a leader who's going to stand up and unite the United Kingdom, Northern Ireland being exactly the same, their flag as a cross on it, who will unite the United Kingdom under the cross of Jesus Christ. In other words, not to just sort of have, oh, this is a Christian country, it's a throwaway line, but to emphasize that we have a Christian constitution. And this is going to be a Christian country. This is a Christian country, and it will remain so. That's what we're waiting for, a leader like that. And that might well be Rupert Lowe, it might well be Kemi, it could be Nigel, it could be somebody completely different, but that's what we're waiting for.
Well, it's clear to everybody, I think, that he was not standing as a Labour candidate in one sense. And that, of course, even his leafleting, even his posters never mentioned Labour once. It was all him. And I don't know, basically, I think Richard Tice had a point. This was and get at any price, get Starmer out of number 10.
Yeah, tactical voting, and I think that is what it boils down to, and I think that's as much as can be, sensibly said about it at the moment. I don't. I mean, some of the chattering classes are saying, oh, Burnham, he's defeated reform, therefore he's defeated populism. Populism is now on the wane. But I was just reading Brendan O'Neill in Spiked Online, and he's saying, dream on if you think populism is dead. The working class are not finished yet. And you could well have another gathering, summer of discontent over anything, any spark can start it, or even hoist a flag or unite the kingdom rallies held anywhere other than London, outside London. There was a rally in Sheffield the other day, and of course the Antifa, all the masked balaclava um, left violent lefties turned up, and the police made arrests. Um, and yeah, so it could still keep simmering over. The isn't there a line? Is there a poet or something like the people of England have not spoken yet, or something? So we're waiting for. I mean, the people need a leader, frankly, and I remember from my slight study of French history that at the time what started the counter revolution against the French Revolution started in the Vendée in western France, very Catholic area to this day, to a certain extent in Brittany, and the paysans, the country dwellers, or it gives us our word peasants, the country people objected to the revolution. They wanted the faith. They wanted the Christian faith, which for them is Catholic faith, fair play, and they wanted the king back, le roi et le roi, and they actually went to the local castles to press gang the nobility into leading them in battle. They recognized that they needed a leader. The people need that they need leaders, and the present lot. Kemi's making good noises, but says she's lost her faith. Uh, the Nigel and the Rupert, they don't quite give me the vibe of a solid, you God fearing leader. And that I think that is what we're aiming for. We that's what we're praying for. God fearing, able, truthful, honest, humble men of God to lead us. And when that happens, that won't half put the establishment in a pickle. The Guardian will be all over itself saying that they're going to do this, they're going to do that. But that's what it needs. Somebody with the guts and the faith to say this is a Christian country. That's how it's going to stay. That's what we need, and
Well,
we're not within miles of that yet.
no, the other thing, of course, is the abject failure of the Lib Dems. I think it's about 100 and odd votes they got. The Greens weren't much better. So it
Yeah.
was a get Andy back into number 10 at any cost. From a personal point of view, he's actually to the left of Starmer. And I don't think for 1 minute there will be any difference, except it will be the same old Labour with a new face that's more acceptable to the ordinary Joe in the street.
I mean, you're really just confirming what Harriet Harman said. There's no difference between them. And as for the Lib Dems vote collapsing, the Green Party vote collapsing, Conservative Party vote collapsing, I think that bears out what Mr. Tyson said. There's a lot of tactical voting going on, and it's very interesting. I think it's the first time for 100 years that a candidate has stood for a party, but actually standing for the party, but against the leader. So it's interesting time to be alive, and we shall see how it pans out. But in the meantime, folks, we need to be praying for the Lord to raise up these righteous people who we need, and also, if we pray to the Lord, Lord, what can I do in this situation? Then the Lord might well say to you, and here's a point of witness to that effect: join an emerging political party and start making a difference within it.
Well, you've got two of the same with Rupert Lowe and Nigel Farage. There is a distinction. Is one better than the other?
Is it? I'm tempted to say to say the simple word egos, and you need somebody with a vision, with a real idea of what he's going to do to lead a political party or a Christian prayer group or start a TV station. It has to be someone with a bit of a vision, and so that yes, the people need. I keep saying the people need leaders, and yeah, so whether that's just when people fall out with each other, so Rupert and Nigel did, then they, maybe it starts with a, or you should be doing this or you should be doing that, but it quickly morphs into full scale policies diametrically opposite. It has to, otherwise, what's the point of this person or that person? So yeah, don't don't misunderestimate, as the late President, not late, but as the previous President Bush would have said, don't misunderestimate the scope for human beings to be completely mad and crackers and do things which are totally ridiculous and driven by emotion rather than reason. Don't be surprised if that happens.
Yeah, the one word that we keep saying between us, Stephen, that comes out of this is chaos. We're not out of the chaos, are we?
It is chaotic, but it's chaotic with the whole machinery of government organising it, and drinking sessions in breweries will be child's play. Just they are not capable of. They're not capable of putting more than one warship to sea at a time. They really are hopeless, and the reason I think the reason is that they have left off to take heed to the Lord. The prophet Hosea in chapter 4, verse 10, speaks actually to our situation in the United Kingdom. He says they shall commit whoredom, free love, swapping partners, modified monogamy, and shall not increase. We're not replacing our population because they have left off to take heed to the Lord. So, that really sums up our elite. And I'm afraid it goes right to the top. His Majesty doesn't know his Islam from his Christianity, and he doesn't know his climate. When climate fanaticism is oppressing his people. It's yeah, it is, as you say, it is a shambles. But the reason is that they try to do things in their own strength, in their own, and I put it in inverted commas, wisdom. It's always going to fail. They need to go back to the source, back to the fount of knowledge himself, or the Almighty. And until they do that, they'll flounder around. They're going to flounder around. And you see, people, no one person. Look, you can't. Information theory says that you can never understand an organism even as complicated as yourself. In other words, the human brain will never understand the human brain. How much less could we try to understand human society? But the maker himself has put an instruction book together. I have a copy of one here. And we might have the humility to accept that he might have got a couple of things right in the rule book that he's set down to stop human society blowing to pieces. I'll put that another way. There have been numerous scientists, starting off with Christian scientists centuries ago, trying to work out what the laws of God are in nature. That's how we have things like Boyle's law, laws of entropy, thermodynamics, even the law of gravity. Isaac Newton trying to work out why an apple dropped to the floor. So we're trying to codify the laws of nature. In other words, in science, that's what science does. But there's no rule book written for it, except you can read that he maketh the sun to rise and the moon to set and stuff. But the point I'm trying to make is that the Lord knew that we would never find out how society works by experiment. So he's set down his law to govern how society works. There is a law that governs how nature works. We can discover that. There's a law that governs how society works. We can't discover that, except that we are trying to now by an experiment to destruction. However, the Lord has set it down, and it perplexes me why people do not say, hang on a minute, let's look what the Maker himself said.
If it's any comfort, and it's not really, things are even worse in Spain. We've got an extreme left-wing government, even more left-wing than the socialists in the UK. They do it better here because they have a penchant for corruption. Both the Prime Minister Sanchez and his wife are regularly taken to court. They escape jail because as an elite, you've got all the power. But the one thing that is the same with both countries is the lies that are put out, the dubious and rotten figures that are put out. Like at the moment, this very day in Spain, we're letting 500,000 people in the country illegals, anybody, and we're going to regularise them. That's a lie. The government knew from day one there was 1.2 million. It's the same with the boats coming over to Britain. The figures are fudged and lies, and they use net figures which are totally meaningless. Oh, we've done this. And I'm sorry, you are standing before God finally in a Christian society or in a non-Christian society, and judgment will perhaps come, Stephen.
Yeah, I mean, here they have the celebrated net migration figure. They say, "Oh, net migration is not rising as fast," but that's because a lot of people are leaving. Now, some of the people who are leaving are just those from overseas who fed up with it and or made enough money and going back home. But the other lot are leaving, who are leaving, are the brightest and best, who can see a better life for themselves in, I don't know, the United States, Australia, Hungary, wherever. So that there was a brain drain and a skills drain going on. So the dregs of humanity are washing up on our shores. Meanwhile, the brightest and best are leaving. So I mean, the whole thing is not sustainable. And of course, we're talking now in mentioning the dregs of society. We're talking in a week in which Rupert Lowe published his rape gangs report, and that is harrowing reading.
Yeah, there's more of that to come, and we will certainly be covering it. Stephen, we've completely run out of time. Thank you so much for getting away from your farming activities. But it's a one-off occasion that we've been through. The count was at 3:30, was it, this morning? Everybody's starting to wake up. But I think we both agree it ain't solved anything, has it?
No, but it's not over till he says it's over. So don't worry about that.
Yep. Thank you so much. We'll see you shortly.
Okay.